After 2 years, Badmouse has finally returned to tell us that he's probably not returning and why that's the case. But this is an important video as it gives us an opportunity to take a moment to examine what it is exactly that we're all doing here on YouTube, both you, the viewer, and left-wing content creators. And it forces us to critically examine the limits and pitfalls of producing this kind of content, at least in the typical left-tuber way. And yes, I hate the term content creator just as much as you do. I die a little bit more of cringe each time I hear it, let alone say it. If anyone has a less terrible term for it, I'm all ears. Now there's a lot to talk about here, so I'm going to start by responding to some of the main points that Badmouse addressed in this recent video, fleshing some out, pushing back against some others, and offering some potential solutions to help make sure that each of us don't end up falling into the same traps, getting burnt out, and subsequently nuking all these channels one by one. And also to help keep us focused on what we're actually supposed to be doing here, supporting the development of a collective revolutionary consciousness. I want to say up front that I highly respect Badmouse for his work, despite some political disagreements here and there. He's an excellent animator who, for a time, was creating quite useful Marxist educational material, and I sincerely hope he returns to put his skills to use for building the movement. Oh, and by the by, no, this isn't some anti-Breadtube hysteria video about how to a CIA plot to assassinate actual communists, or whatever extremely online nonsense people are saying. I'm going to be talking about left-wing YouTube in general here. The alliteration just worked well for the title. Now, on to Badmouse's video.
Hey guys, it's been a while. You might want some explanation for why I just suddenly dropped off the earth, so to speak. Here it is. So long-time subscribers will know that back in 2017, I took a long break from YouTube because I was stressed. I felt really burnt out from making videos like 2 a month, I think I was making at the time. I didn't have any original ideas or any original stuff to make, so I just figured, okay, I need to take a break from this. Goodbye, I'll come back later. And in 2019, I once again began to feel that same feeling I had, only this time it was much more intense and much more just visceral to me. And so, as the months went on, I gradually lost my interest in making political videos and ran out of worthwhile ideas. I just said, fuck it, I'm leaving.
Activist burnout is a huge issue that many of us struggle with. And yes, I'm operating on the assumption that creating and disseminating left-wing educational material and propaganda can be considered a form of activism. We need to figure out a better way of handling this activist burnout because for those of us who are genuinely interested in transitioning from capitalism to socialism, revolution doesn't spontaneously happen overnight. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Hell, the comrades in the Philippines have been fighting the Revolutionary War for over 50 years at this stage, and they're ready to fight for 50 more. But to bring it back to the context of YouTube, it can't continue to be the case where we have individuals starting new channels and making solid Marxist content while they're excited and full of energy and enthusiasm, only to be ground down and burnt out after a few months and then ending up deleting the whole channel. This isn't a sustainable way of raising class consciousness and building towards revolution. Now that being said, it's completely understandable how this happens. Creating video essays like Badmouse's is a hugely time-intensive process, from research to writing and rewriting, to recording, especially if there's video involved, to editing both audio and video, to making animations, to tracking down relevant visuals like stock footage or finding pictures, to promoting the video, etc. It'd be very easy to become overwhelmed and just say, fuck it, it's not worth the effort, especially if you're doing it solo without anyone else's help, as many of us are, which may be part of the problem. And so consequently, many aspiring content creators now look to less time-intensive alternatives like streaming, which the YouTube algorithm encourages as you can produce a lot more content a lot more regularly and keep viewers on the website to view its advertisements for longer. And if you release highlight clips from those long-form streams, then even better. More clicks for YouTube, more time spent on the platform, more money to them. A teeny tiny portion of which flows down to the content creator, creating a material incentive to focus on producing this kind of content. Now, for those who've resisted this trend and continue to release video essays in the style of Badmouse, their solution seems mostly to be to release them much less frequently. For example, the big ones like ContraPoints, H-Bomber Guy, etc. now only release a few videos per year. The only big exception that comes to mind is Second Thought, who manages to release videos weekly. The man's a machine. But most of us aren't, and in the short term, creators and viewers should probably set more realistic expectations for these kinds of video releases, like once per month, rather than pumping out content every other day and getting burnt out and all ending up in the same position as Badmouse. Long term, however, the solution seems to be more collective efforts to keep advancing in spaces like these, because no matter what, individuals will get tired and burnt out and so on, and others need to be able to step in and pick up the torch when that happens. Moving forward, revolutionary organisations themselves should, where possible, be the ones leading these collective media efforts, rather than lone wolf individual propagandists. A good example of how this might work in practice can be seen over on Anti-Imperialist Action Ireland's YouTube channel, where you can find their general organisational activity as well as video essays like their series on loyalism, interviews and full-on documentaries. Alongside specific organisational channels like that, there should be larger networks which can incorporate individuals' channels within them, creative collectives of a sort which are linked with actual revolutionary movements, connecting theory and practice as much as is reasonably possible within the parameters of the platform. The Badmouses of the world could help a lot by lending their efforts to collective projects with revolutionary groups, and it would take a lot of the heavy load off everyone's shoulders because a whole group of others are around to help out at all times. Many hands make light work.
This isn't just the only reason for why I left. On top of this, I just found that years upon years of just existing in politics online really depresses you. Like really. When you create content, it either isn't affecting that much, relatively speaking, or you end up becoming what I can only really describe as a brand. And, really what I have seen as the left has gotten much bigger, brandification and idol worship has just become something I've exponentially just grown to hate and loathe and avoid, which, largely explains why I just decided to leave.
So there are two main points here. The first is not really affecting change in the way that you might desire, and the second is the problem with individuals becoming brands. If you expect a 10-minute socialist educational video to herald in the revolution the next day, as both certain content creators and some viewers appear to, then yeah, you're going to be disappointed. If you think that spreading around these videos alone will automatically turn people into the next Red Army, you're also going to be disappointed. And despite what some individuals in these spaces will say, content creators as individuals are not leading mass movements. Don't be deceived. So then we might ask, what's the point? What can left-wing YouTube actually do? Why create? Why watch? Why share these around? After a few years of doing this, bumping up against limits of various kinds, there are two things that left-wing content creation appears, to me, to be able to do quite effectively to help real-world revolutionary movements. The first and most effective is general political education. It's difficult to get a solid Marxist political education in most places outside of actually being part of an IRL organisation's educational programme. So this educational content can really help newcomers to the left who are curious about Marxism. The second thing that can be done is organisational recruitment by directing large audiences towards actual mass movements and specific revolutionary organisations and, importantly, encouraging people to get involved, which unfortunately I don't see a lot of large left-wing content creators doing. As for the remark about content creators becoming brands, this is unfortunately very accurate. You can try and push back against this in various ways, but we live in capitalism and everything happening here is mediated by market dynamics, whether we like it or not. Everything that can possibly be commodified is. Got some comments? Boom, enclosure. We can try to pretend that we big-brained Marxists are above these market dynamics, all we want, but so long as we exist within this system, we're fooling ourselves. Even if the brand is anti-brand and authenticity or something like that, then that's what you're selling. It's shite, but that's the system that we're in. The solution is not to blame individuals and act like we even really have a choice in this, but rather to replace the capitalist system which necessitates this behaviour with the socialist system which doesn't, and to work on actually achieving that. How that translates onto spaces like YouTube is likely collectivizations of labour in various ways. Not necessarily organisations taking over individuals' political channels, as this has been tried and hasn't worked so well. I recommend listening to Danky Hang's experience with this for more. But rather individualistic political projects becoming less and less relevant as organisations' collective political channels and larger networks grow stronger and stronger. And it should go without saying that this has to be connected to a genuinely revolutionary movement that's actually building the support of and empowering the masses.
I don't like making stuff that I love for money.
Now, it's always possible to just not make money from it and make that stuff you love anyway. I know this is tricky because YouTube promotes monetized content more heavily as that's how the platform makes its money, or appropriates surplus value from us, which means that choosing to demonetize your content will cause less people to see it. And if you're making political propaganda, then you want the proletarian message to reach as many working class and otherwise oppressed people as possible. Weighing up the pros and cons, YouTube monetization does appear to be worth the trade-off in terms of aiding the dissemination of this propaganda. And plus, you'll realistically probably only get about €5 per video, so comparing that to the dozens of hours of labour that's gone into producing it, you're basically working for free. Phew, what a relief. If you have a job and you're in a financial position to, then don't do it for money. Delete the Patreon and just create. Do it to serve and advance the revolutionary movement. We always need more propagandists and educators. Again, particularly working collectively where possible.
I just find the whole guy educates you on socialism thing, genre, whatever, just a little bit cringe.
Yeah, couldn't be me. Moving swiftly on.
Looking at some contemporary newcomers, I just get the feeling sometimes certain people are maybe more interested in becoming YouTubers than, they are with the whole struggle. And I see that exemplified in the way that they respond to stuff or respond to invitations or, in the stuff that they do. And I don't like that.
Debate me, bro. Nah, but honestly, this is a massive issue. Individualism is a huge problem on the online left. Badmouse earlier mentioned this problem of idol worship and brands and so on, the apotheosis of which is perhaps the online debate culture which is developed, wherein the purpose of these debates is not education or to help organisations, or even to arrive at truth as its proponents may claim. It's merely pitting individuals against one another in egotistical battles of rhetoric. And as anyone who's engaged with public formal debate knows, that's all it is. Rhetoric. Theatre. Pseudo-intellectual jousting. Winning a debate does not mean a position is correct. Losing a debate does not mean a position is incorrect. Certainly not according to the Marxist theory of knowledge as outlined in texts like On Practice, Where the Correct Ideas Come From, etc. And importantly, many of these supposedly left-wing debate bro types are claiming to be Marxists, which should be setting off alarm bells for anyone viewing their content immediately. But anyway, there's a huge problem of YouTubers creating content as an entirely individualistic project to big themselves up, to make themselves individually appear to be these godlike gigabrains or whatever, rather than to focus on developing the movement and supporting the international proletarian struggle more broadly. Egos have to be kept in check within collective networks of comrades who actively engage in principled good faith criticism and self-criticism. This can do nothing but make all of us stronger together.
It is my belief, and there might be science that proves me wrong, but I don't know. It is my belief that most people do not ponder what a topic is, go to YouTube, click on the first link and go, this video was released a few years ago, they might have changed their views, it might be a bit outdated, I'll bear this in mind when determining my view. Most people, when they see a video on class or class explained, they go, that person looks like an authority on this. I know what class is all about now. I don't need anything else to know. I've got it. We just see something said by normally a strong, well-spoken white guy and go, this person knows what they're saying. Damn right. Solid dick. I got it. So as much good as some videos might be, if there's some misleading or outdated information in there, it's not something that I personally feel comfortable with.
This is a really good point. Related to everything else covered thus far about individualism and idol worship is the creation of these pseudo-authority figures. People, unfortunately, often mistake confidence for expertise. And due to the kinds of meritocratic values with which we're instilled, we can sometimes assume that, for example, the number of subscribers that a channel has corresponds with the correctness of the channel holder's positions, which it doesn't. The YouTube algorithm doesn't give a shit about whether someone's positions are correct or not. Its singular concern is maximising profit. If you can make YouTube a lot of money, your voice will be amplified. It doesn't matter whether you've actually been democratically elected to speak on behalf of a movement, whether you actually represent the people. It doesn't matter if you have experience as an educator or a propagandist, or if you even actually have a clue what you're talking about. On YouTube, your authority is primarily derived from the fact that you're able to make YouTube a lot of money, even if that's by spreading lies and misinformation. So, not great. Again, a collective network will be able to handle this kind of stuff much better, keeping people in check, making sure that if erroneous positions are put forward or misinformation was spread, then these could be rectified and so on and so forth. This video that Badmouse has released is important in helping us to understand many of the potential pitfalls of left-wing content creation and can help us to see paths forward for overcoming them. I will also say that I believe it'd be better for everyone if Badmouse would put up his videos again, albeit with disclaimers for points which were incorrect. This could easily be done with a pinned comment at the top. You could put a notice in the title to say, check pinned comment, or this video is outdated, etc, etc. Years of educational materials are unfortunately now gone because of what appears to be a generally misplaced sense of embarrassment, as he believes a lot of what he's created is, quote, cringe. Which is kinda cringe. Deleting these educational materials has wider reaching ramifications than you may realise. Actual political organisations, including communist parties, often use materials such as these as part of their own course's supplementary materials. For example, there might be a reading group of On Contradiction, and the group will be assigned to read that text, and the supplementary materials provided for that group meeting would have been the Red Menace episode and Badmouse's video on Contradiction. And those materials can be incredibly helpful in terms of helping newcomers to communism visualise what can sometimes appear to be quite abstract concepts. Now, if the purpose of the channel was just to feed an individual ego, then yeah, maybe videos which are believed to be cringe should be kept private. But if the purpose was to help educate the masses and contribute to the development of proletarian class consciousness to help build movements more broadly, then those videos should be made public again. Not only for random people on the internet who stumble across them, but for actual communist organisations that use these materials as part of their educational programs. There was a lot of really useful stuff there, and it'd be a shame for all that to go to waste due to some sense of personal embarrassment. I'd encourage Badmouse to think more deeply about the collective interests of the international revolutionary movement which benefits from this work, and to be careful of falling into the liberal trap of placing personal interests first and the interests of the revolution second. Badmouse has excellent skills in terms of animation and the production of videos. He also has a good knowledge of Marxism, though like everyone else, myself included, we all have certain areas that need to be refined. I sincerely hope Badmouse will return to making left-wing educational material and revolutionary propaganda soon. It doesn't even have to be Badmouse Productions per se, it could even be educational videos on behalf of a specific political organisation or movement. But the important thing is that he does contribute his skills to the revolutionary movement. There's a lot of potential for left-wing YouTube as a tool for genuine Marxist political education, as well as some openings for organisation and agitation. We can't cede this territory to opportunists and imposters who masquerade as socialists, but in truth seek little more than fame, fortune and the bolstering of their own personal egos. Alright, thank you for watching this video. Badmouse's video was a little bit of a wake-up call for me, as I'm definitely heading down that burnout route myself at the moment. I think I'm going to have to dial back the frequency of videos to every second Friday to ensure the continuation of this channel for the foreseeable future. What I'll do is I'll write up a post about it on Patreon to explain what's going on a bit more for anyone who's interested, and I'll ask for your feedback over there as well. Speaking of which, thank you Ian McShay, Ugopnik, Annex Magnus, Burku Gorilla, Ryan Hodgson, Soup, Evan Crossland, Madeline, Sonic232, Sagan, Michaela Schmid, Kristen Nepales, Brian Ruse, Alfonso Dingo Torres, Mekalova, Keith the Fields, Rock Artist, Todd Sprang, Nike the Sage, Train H13, Meowsifer, Hunter Johnson, Rare Hero, Donald O'Quishleva, Sixney Velan, Lepanian, Kale Marks, Roja, Emma Lemon Practice, Eric Lindahl, ZK Goody, Laverna Wintermore, Kyle Rapp, Vuchko, Doc Toma, Oyob Farah, Becky, Pastor Schubert, A Mouthwash Bottle, Mr. Miyamoto, Kyle King, Reverend Lon Nom Hollywood, Wonderbad, JT Chapman, Jose, Joseph Shepard, Jack Schneidman, Comrade Amara, Will for the 99%, Spoop and Trailer Park Communist. Cheers everyone, agus slán go fóill.